We went to Paris and back. Because with the electric pump, when you start up, it comes on for 10 seconds and switches off for 30 seconds. So it's 10 on, 30 on. You can make
You could either drive it as an auto or as a manual, because the lever was a straight gate, and you could just flick it from one to the other, and to the other, to the other. And he had this gearbox. David used to come and work in it. It was an old 1952-ish Morris Oxford, and he drove that around. Then he had this XK140 drophead coupe, and the Hobbs Mechamatic transmission in it, and he raced that quite successfully in club racing. Lofty England always used to take an interest in any of the apprentices or that's was showing a bit of talent that way, and Lofty got him a drive with an outfit called Peter Berry Racing. They raced a couple of E-types in 1961, and but of course by 1967, his career had flourished, and he was an international driver of some repute, and a good one too.
Yeah.
And so I have got no proof, but I have no doubt, knowing the way it worked at Jaguar, we never spent any money wherever we...
Well, Richard Atwood was in a similar situation.
Yes, Richard Atwood was an apprentice as well at Jaguar. Yeah. I have no doubt that Lofty got onto it. Come over to Myra, we've got this car to test. I bet he bought him a pint at the local pub. That would be the fee. I wouldn't be surprised if it was as cheap as that.
Probably.
And it was the same with Dickie Atwood. I mean, he likes to be called Richard, but we used to call him Dick. And he was a bloody good driver too. And the pair of them ran the 13 the last time it was ever run on test by Jaguar at Silverstone. And there again, Lofty would have gotten for next to nothing. I mean, whereas if he'd gone to somebody like Brabham or somewhere like that, he'd have had to shell out some money.
Yeah, there were still top flight race drivers.
Oh yes, there were. Yeah, very much so. Oh yeah. But it was the Lofty. The machine shop was then moved out to the Daimler Works at Radford to make more, and Browns Lane became more and more of an assembly plant only. So it was. So but that film is fantastic, because you see all the people there. It's like an ant's nest. Yeah. You go around the modern car plant and you have a job to find anybody working.
It's all robots.
That's right. But we used to all the.
They made me promise in the car club to bring back video.
All right.
So you should.
But we.
If I don't take
it was never
video
meant to be a big commercial enterprise. That's not where I wanted to go. So if somebody else wants to take it on after me and carry on, then that's fine.
A guy called Fred Gardner, who was an absolute tyrant. He really was. He was the most obnoxious person you could come across in Jaguar. But he'd been with Sir William Lyons right from the word go in Blackpool. And the rumour was, the popular rumour, I don't know whether there was any truth in it, because Sir William called everybody by their surname, including his main board of directors. You know, I've heard it, it'd be in our shop with Bill Haynes, Haynes, and he called them all by their surnames. And Bill Haynes was deputy chairman for MSC. But Fred Gardner, he always called by his Christian name. He was the only person we ever heard him call anybody Fred. Now, the rumour was that why and how did Fred survive being such a tyrant in the company was that back in the Blackpool days, the early days when he was building sidecars, there was a bit of a financial hiatus, and Fred had lent him some money, and he never forgot it. But Fred had a lad called Gordon Gardner, and because of his association, his old man, Gordon was in the competition department, and in later years, in the 60s, Gordon was, he never did do work, he always had his own agenda, and he'd be off here in the factory, and he used to, because Fred Gardner ran the wood shop, Gordon had this little gas mask case, like a canvas haversack, in the 70s in. And about 10 o'clock morning break, he'd put this under his arm and away he'd go. I wouldn't see him for an hour. And one of my colleagues, Bob Penny, he brings it, and then later in the afternoon, he comes back with this haversack, and it's solid. He puts it under his bench. So Bob decided he'd find out what was going on. So when Gordon was off making his tea, Bob has a look, and it's about 3/4 inch plywood, and it's cut to the exact size, and it's all slotted all the way down to within about this much of the bottom. This was Gordon's firewood to light his fire when he was pre-cut, so he just broke the sticks off. That's just it. Because he'd go to the wood shop, his old man had detailed one of the men to do it, and this was it. So my colleague Bobby says, there's a little bit of fun here. So he got this, measured up, sawed up this piece of solid mahogany. And Gordon comes back with his under the bench, off to make his tea. Bob says, out with the sticks, in with the solid block, and then that's it, you see. Anyway, next thing is that, as you find out what's going on from the main factory, next thing is the guy whose job it was to sort of, old Fred had got to cut Gordon's sticks if he died, gets an almighty bollocking for having his lad over because Gordon got home. And we felt ever so guilty because it was nothing to do with the poor bloke who was making, and they wouldn't accept his explanation. I was like, that was something like my indentures, but not quite, because it also tells you how much you get paid a week. The price had gone up when I was
22 shillings.
22 shillings. But
Well, I got £4.50 a week.
1919. From 1919. That's a standard motor company.
Yes.
Because it was done worldwide. Yeah, like everybody knows what the scene is big. Right? Well, that's the right line is called.
Instrumentation and control, the produced iron plants. Been in Pakistan, I've been in Iran, I've been in Qatar, building these plants and commissioning. Built and commissioned there. Well, we just completed the building of it. The Pakistanis built it. It's now shut down.
Is it?
Because
It's beautifully formed and made.
You're looking at the origins of Jaguar now. Looks fantastic. Austin 7 chassis.
That's the road.
Yeah, it's a cracker, isn't it?
With World War I over, Coventry could get back to breaks down.
Plus, the track when you go to piece of board and leaving them back up.
I've seen one or two where there's sparks that drive out the sparks because they're not access to them. It's probably one of the it was the first sort of modern car that was made after the war.
This was 40s.
Yeah. I remember when I was as a nipper being taken to see it in the showroom at Carlisle. You couldn't get near the place, and you could put your name down on the waiting list, and the waiting list was about 3 years long.
It's a 2, isn't it?
It looks like it. Yes, it is.
Union thing. When you got styled headlights, they became very expensive because you had to have glass lenses. As an European Union dictator, whereas really we wanted to use polycarbonate that you could fire a shotgun and look great, but we weren't allowed to. Became the Sterling, which was we call it XX, Rover 800 in this country. And then we moved on again to a thing we called it the R8, which was the Rover 200, like a fastback, and that was a very, very successful car for us, hugely successful. And in fact, we used to build the Honda Concerto at Longbridge, and what happened was that Honda had at Swindon Airfield, they had a validation plant, if you like. We built the cars at Longbridge. They were shipped down by rail to Swindon, and Honda would just check them, make sure they were fit for what they consider their customers. Well, the first batch of about 250 went down by train. 2 days later, they were back, rejected every one of them, and because of poor build quality. Honda then put into Longbridge some of their own people to oversee, and they taught us an awful lot on how to build cars. And the Longbridge people hated it because they thought they knew how to build cars. We knew how to build cars, you know. They didn't. And the Honda dragged us into the modern era. And when BMW bought Rover Group, Honda just pulled the shutters down because they were competitive. And that was a tragedy. Because what Honda wanted to do at that stage, they had a 20% shareholding in Rover Group, and they wanted to extend that to 49%, now 51% owned by a British consortium. The British Aerospace wouldn't wear it, and the assets stripped all the land. Aerospace did, both at Canley and at Cowley, sold the carcass to BMW. who really made a pig's ear of it. Yeah. That was really was remarkable.
Okay.
Right, well, the real history behind the XKSS was it wasn't a series production car. The plan was to build 100 production D-types for sale to the public, because they had to do this to comply with the homologation requirements of 100 cars to get it logged, registered as a production car. But they only made 75 because there wasn't the market. And there were still 25 they couldn't sell. And these were stored in sheds just to the north of the factory, just the other side of the factory road from the main factory. And some of my apprentice colleagues says, oh, yeah. We used to go in there at lunchtimes and sit in them and eat our sandwiches and try and start them. Now, the way of getting rid was that Bob Blake was very instrumental in this, in creating the XKSS, which was just a D-type with the centre bar sawn out, screen, various other things to make it sort of road acceptable. But they were never a production car. They were built to order. You ordered one, another D-type out of the store, and convert it to an XKSS. So when they actually when the fire occurred, I think there was only about one XKSS that was actually destroyed in the fire. There were some D-types in the service department, customer cars, etc., and they were destroyed. But so there was and then some were dismantled. So if you add them up, they say, oh well, there's 9 cars that were never built. But there was just a way of getting rid of these old D-types that couldn't sell. And when the factory fire occurred, of course, it was very convenient to say, well, we can't make any more because all the jigs have been destroyed. Absolute rubbish. It was a convenient story to say, well, we can't make any more anyway. And that's that. Huh. So anyway, they decided they're going to resurrect the XKSS and build these nine missing cars.
Right.
So
it's a good story.
But that's the truth of how it happened.
Well, I'll be darned.
Yeah, and there are not just me, there are other colleagues of mine who were there 2-3 years before me, and this is where I get the information from, and they all tell you the same, unprompted by each other, and that's the way it was. What do you mean, he says? I said, well, they discovered this underground workshop. I said, that knocked this order, and here it is, in this underground workshop. Nobody knew it'd been walled up in there. He laughed, he said, he knew. I said, it'd be a good story. Do you see they've got displays like this? Nothing to tell description.
It's half of each well.
Mm-hmm. I haven't even seen any reference to this.
I've seen some pictures of this arrangement for some of the prototype engines.
What is this?
This is
yeah, that's the Range Rover.
yeah.
I do prefer the 120 then. For me, that's the ultimate scale.
I always think this car part in here. I think this one is looks super.
The colour really suits
The
it.
colour and the wire wheel looks super. They may have driven drag and truck, but the 140s were better because the rack and pinion steering.
Well,
I built up the prototype 420.
I do like that XJ.
Yeah, the 420 had the 4.2 engine and it had the variable ratio power steering rack in it as well, and made a nice car. But I always felt the Mark II with wire wheels, Carmen red, Mark II, black interior, chrome wire wheels, the business.
oh, what was it called?
CRX, I think.
CRX.
75.
Yeah.
CX75.
Or CX75.
CX75. That's what it was.
It's the modern day XJ13,
Exactly.
Supposedly.
which now they've announced they're not going to make.
Right.
They're not going to make. So even though they've the James Bond movie.
What they say?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about producing something.
Well, they're supposed to have these little miniature gas turbines in and the rest of it in 1,000 miles an hour. I don't think whoever did that. Yeah. So when? Well, the XJ13 book, how I got to know Neville was that I'd been coerced into writing this book by a publisher, Paul Skilton, and I did most of it on the way back from Australia on a cruise ship. So I had 6 weeks to, no telephones to answer, nothing. It was marvellous. I was busy writing this stuff, and then I get this text from a guy who builds XJ13 replicas. Somehow he'd got my name. It wasn't a text, it was an email. And he said, he knew somebody, a potential client, who bought this proper engine. I thought, yeah, I've heard all this before. So, and he gives me so I text back and say, he gave me some information, so I think it's probably this one. And he passed the email on to Neville, and then there was emails back and forth. So it just so happened I could identify it without any problem, because I'd got all my notes, which told me which cylinder head numbers were on this engine, so it was easy. So that was how I got to know Neville. I subsequently went over to see him when I got back, and he showed me the engine. And then you fast forward a bit to the point where he starts to have it dismantled. And Jim Eastick, who was one of my colleagues from the experimental engine department, who started up the first V12 right from the word go. Jim and I went across and we saw it being stripped down, took a mountain of photographs, which he's like manna from heaven, because here I'd got all this information for the book. And it just went from there. Things kept coming up out of the woodwork. Somebody found one of Malcolm Sayers' aerodynamic models for it's like an 8th scale. They used in a wind tunnel at Loughborough University. But the way I found that was because Neville had got on to some guy who'd been a Jaguar apprentice like 5 years after I'd left.
Cliff Riddell,
yeah. Who was into a lot of body stuff, and particularly digitally generated and stuff these days. And Neville had been in touch with it, and then Neville puts me in touch with Cliff, and then I tic-tac with Cliff, and we realised that we'd been at the same place only 5 years apart. So Cliff provides me with this stuff. He says, use all the here's my photographs, here you go. I said, how did you get onto it at Loughborough then? He says, well, I was giving a lecture there, he says, about CAD design work, and the head of engineering, he says, said to me, he says, you're at Jaguar? He says, we used to have a guy called Malcolm Sayer years back. He used to come and use our wind tunnel. Now this wind tunnel was like a wooden affair. He says, we've still got it. I think he's still got one of his old models there. So he says, after the lecture, he says, we go down, he says, under this bench, he pulls out this model, he goes, it blows the dust off it, and here it is. He says, Cliff said, the head of engineering, he says, he says, if you've got an hour or two, he says, we'll fire the old wind tunnel up. Haven't fired it up for years, he says, and we'll have a play. So didn't know more than that, and there's some, there's with all the street lines there. So Cliff had gotten his photographs. He says, "Help yourself, make use of them." So there was, without that, there were things just kept fell out of the woodwork. Once it became known around that you were writing the book, there were other bits of information came forward. The car was crashed by Norman Lewis, rather famously, and
76?
71.
One.
Yeah, but it wasn't rebuilt until 73.
That's right.
My old boss, who was Phil Weaver, who was superintendent of the competition department, Phil was on the point of retiring, and he had a phone call from Lofty England, who'd taken over from Sir William Lyons as the MD, and Lofty said, "We'll rebuild I'd like to get the XJ13 rebuilt. Would you stay on to oversee it?" Well, Phil loved it. And Phil lived in Kenilworth like I do. I used to bump into him in the town, and he was telling me about this. He's very proud of the fact he was then Jaguar's oldest employee. And he was telling me about some of the things they had to do. No budget. He called in all the favours that he'd dished out over the years from other companies. And one of the wheels was broken, and a chunk knocked out of the rim. No patents, no nothing, no money. So Phil was quite resourceful, and he looking to see what they could do. Could they salvage it out of something else? They went to an outfit called Sterling Metals over in Nuneaton, who were big into aluminium stuff, and they made the front wheel, the nose wheel forgings from Concord, and they measured this up, 15-inch down. We could machine a new rim section out of the Concord nose wheel forging, and machine a bit back on the XJ13 broken XJ, weld the thing. Yep, so that was that. To get permission from BAC, aircraft people, who said, "Here's a couple of, yeah, you can have a couple." So they machined off the rim section, the outer rim section, and then we machined off the broken, we machined that off, spigoted one onto the other, and welded it up. So fast forward now to I'm writing the book. Well, people like to think that this story is fictitious about the welded on wheel. I talked to Norman Lewis, he says so. But I believe Phil. And so I was talking to the guy who's the full-time technician at Jaguar Heritage, Richard Mason, no relation to George Mason who worked there. And he says, "Oh yes, it's because it's got new wheels on it now. They were recast about 20 years ago, and cost about £5,000 to make new tools and the rest of it." He says, "We've still got the original ones, you know." I said, "Where?" He said, "Down at Sandy Lane in the warehouse." He says, "Go on, we'll go and have a look." So they got the tyres still on them. So only the tyres off, Richard, so we can see the inside off the rear wheels. Can't tell which was the one that was repaired. But anyway, we took it to the local tyre shop to get the tyres off. Their machine wouldn't look at it because it was big wide wheels, you see. Eventually, takes them down to Northampton, 40 miles away, and he gets the tyres off. Following week, I'm back at Jaguar Heritage, got the tyres off, he says. He says, "You're only right," he says. "Look at this." And here it is, the welded on rim section, you can see it. So, no, there were things like that that was able to sort of pull in and put into the book. It was really, it was like a drug.
Yeah.
It was almost as if you're on drugs.
It was such a big vacuum, wasn't it?
An obsession, yeah.
Yeah. So it was finding the evidence based on what I knew. And the evidence was unequivocal and it was there. Surprised a lot of people because